One of the most common questions we get here at the Health Professions Advising Center is how do I prepare for the MCAT? Of course, answers are going to vary from one person to the next, but I'm going to help you walk through my own general tips based on 14 years of advising, most of which I've taught the verbal reasoning for pre-health class, which walks through critical reasoning and reading strategies for MCAT. My name is Dorian Rainey. I'm currently serving as director of the Health Professions Advising Center, and I'm hoping to do as much good as possible for you guys in just a few minutes. First thing to remember about MCAT is that it is not primarily a content test. It's primarily a reasoning test. So if you have even a general idea of how the fundamental science, sociology, psychology, neuroscience concepts work, then you should be able to reason your way to right answers most of the time. It is, of course, designed to be hard, right? It's got to discriminate between all the people applying to medical schools, which is a pretty sharp group of folks. So some of the questions will be intentionally hard. Many of them are designed to be tricky, and we do not expect people to get every question right. But I think that with good critical reasoning skills and some practice, then you ought to be able to get 80 or 90% of them right. I think that's within reach for almost anybody, which makes for a pretty darn solid MCAT score. All right. First off, I like to share some notes with you here, listening a little bit content. Yes, it does help to know the content, but it's primarily a test of reasoning. Why? Because you can learn the content later, but you really need to have the reasoning skills to be able to succeed in medical school and practice. All right, what we have here is not, in fact, one test, but 4 tests of reasoning. We've got 4 sections. One is about reasoning with chemistry and physical science skills. One is about reasoning with text passages. One is about reasoning with biology skills, and one reasoning with behavioral and social science skills. All right. Fundamentally, then, all sections of the test rely on 2 skills: your ability to spot bogus answers and throw them out, and your ability to identify the strongest of the remaining answer choices. These are 2 skills that you use constantly in medicine. The ability to spot bogus answers is a deductive reasoning skill. So this is, I have all of the information I need. Can I spot whether I have all the right information that I need or not? Obviously, this is a core skill for medical diagnostics. The other core skill we're testing here is inductive reasoning, meaning I know that I don't have all the information I need. Can I choose between which of these conclusions is the more strongly supported by the evidence I do have? So this is, you can imagine having a set of vitals, and it does not tell you the full diagnosis, but you can eliminate many diagnoses as unlikely based on the numbers you're looking at. That's an inductive reasoning task. In Health 4108, that is the verbal reasoning class that I teach, we concentrate on 2 skills: finding logical fallacies, so broken logic, and then critical reading strategies. You may or may not feel like you need a class like that, but that's how we approach trying to get people to improve at these 2 fundamental MCAT skills. Here's one of the big things to keep in mind for MCAT. Each problem, so, question 1, some sort of problem based on a text, you got 4 answer choices. Actually, usually 5 in the current version of MCAT. A, B, C, D, E. All right. Out of 5 answer choices, some of them are simply going to be wrong. Usually 2 or 3 are just wrong. Maybe they're not in the passage. They're not consistent with the experiment you just read about. They don't follow the laws of physics. And then 2 to 3 of those answer choices will be plausible. One is almost right. and then one is best. This one is where all the real action is, because this one is best except for something. Something has been done to this answer choice to make it slightly wrong. A word has been changed if it's a verbal reasoning passage. You know, maybe the sign is backwards, or the decimal point is in the wrong place, or this is the answer you would get if you had done step 2 of the physics problem wrong. So it's almost the right answer choice, but not quite. And being able to spot the difference between these two reliably is the main task of MCAT. Reliably discerning these, the best, is the main task of MCAT. We expect that most people, most of the time, if they're reading carefully, will correctly throw out the wrong answers. And then we've got 2 to 3 remaining where it comes down to your logic skills. So, all right. Consider for a moment that this is actually the way every section works. So if the correct answer on the verbal section is the author believes X, we're going to have some wrong answers like the author believes Y, something that's just clearly unsupported by the text, Y, Z. And then we're going to have some that are almost correct. The author disbelieves they've used the wrong word, or the author hates X, doesn't really answer the question, or the author would always believe X when really the passage only supports that the author believes it sometimes. You know, so some small thing has been twisted to make this answer wrong. We get that same pattern in all the sections. A, B, C, D, E. You know, so if in an organic chemistry problem, the correct answer looks like this, we've got a few answer choices that are clearly and definitely wrong, would be a very common pattern. And then maybe we've got a couple that are actually almost right. But something has been twisted or broken. And when I look at this set, just looking at the answers, good money says that probably either D or E is the answer. That looks like a correct answer and a slightly broken version of the correct answer. And because of that trend, right? Because there's only so many ways that a test designer tweaks or breaks a best answer to create these bogus foil answers, is what they're called. Then when you practice your doing problems and reading the answer explanations, you start to recognize this fairly limited tool set. There's only like a couple dozen ways that they go in and break wrong answers. And you start to develop an intuition for, you know, I've got 2 answer choices here that I'm considering. One of them just feels more right based on my practice questions. Pick it and move on. So how do we actually approach the MCAT study? So the objective is to get to a point where we can reliably throw out bogus answers and reliably discern the best answers. Here's my recommendation. First off, I do recommend that you spend some time, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, straight up just learning about the test. The official guide to the MCAT, published by the AAMC, is a great guide here. You can get it on Amazon for about $30. You can buy it directly from the AAMC website. The reason I recommend this is, for one thing, it's got all kinds of information about how you schedule your test, what ID to bring the test day, what to eat on the day of the test, all that kind of stuff. Really detailed recommendations from the people who write the MCAT. But it's also got these detailed content lists. So for every single section, it'll say, section 1A, genetics, and then all of these different genetics concepts. And you can straight go down these lists and start marking them off. Like, okay, great. I know that one. I know that one. I know that one. I can solve problems on those all day. There's one that I kind of vaguely remember the existence of from genetics class, but I'm going to have to go back and do some studying. And oh, wait, what is that even? I've never even heard of that concept before. I need to look that one up online. This process becomes your study list. So when you go through all of these, you are creating a custom study list. This will tell you two really important things. One, how long do you really need to spend studying for the MCAT? If there's only a handful of things you need to review, maybe all you need to do is practice questions to get familiar with the test. If there's a lot of stuff you never heard of before, maybe we're looking at some reteaching, or maybe even, taking additional classes before signing up for MCAT. All right, so that custom study list will also give you a good sense of whether something like a third-party guided course would be beneficial to you, or if you're looking at a scope of study that you would prefer to tackle yourself from books and rereading your textbooks and things like that. So people always ask, what course should I take? And I don't think you even know whether you need to take a course until you have done this first part. Next step, you do need to spend some time reviewing the content. Depending on how much review you need, this is frequently between 4 and 6 weeks, usually. You definitely have several weeks. I mean, there's 10 semesters worth of content. So even if all you're doing is paging back over your textbooks, making sure that you can still do the sample problems and you remember all those graphics, it's going to take a little time. Do go over your notes and textbooks. Do create flashcards, diagrams, teach others, anything that allows you to grab those concepts and manipulate them in some way is going to help you to internalize and remember them. There are lots of third-party prep resources available to help you with this. We've got the free Khan Academy videos. We've got steeply discounted resources through Princeton Review. That's a deal that UT Dallas has cut with Princeton Review off all Princeton Review resources except the immersion course. So that's a pretty good deal if you find that you need resources like that. But really, there's others. We find that what resources you use is not super important. We've surveyed lots of students, almost 5,000 previous UTD MCAT takers, and they did not report any significant difference in how useful they found the resources to be across different companies. All of the differences that they reported had to do with how deeply a person used the resources. So if you really dug in, created flashcards, created diagrams, taught others, that sort of thing, then you found whatever resource you were using to be highly useful and beneficial. If you, sat in the back of the class and didn't do the homework or whatever, didn't engage with the resources you had, then you didn't find it useful regardless of how many hours you spent on it or how much you paid for it. So do review the content, but here is the most important part. Most important. And I think 6 to 8 weeks in most cases is learning the test itself. Remember, it is a reasoning test, not a content test. So practice questions, reading the answer explanations, getting good at spotting those bogus and weak answers, and then eventually being able to reliably throw out the weaker of two answer choices. Part of our goal here is to develop our intuition for how the right and wrong answers are phrased differently. Eventually, you get to where you can just kind of smell one of these feels stronger than the other, you pick it and move on. So when you actually get to the test, our goal is they've got some sort of text, right? On the physics section, it'll be lifted from a physics journal. On the cars section, it will be, lifted from an art periodical or something like that. So you're going to read the text one time, carefully constructing a mental model of what was said. An accurate mental model. Hopefully pretty detailed. Okay, that's what we call critical reading. If you do that, you come out of the text. You don't have to remember the whole thing because you come out of it with accurate mental notes. So the whole idea with this creating a mental model is that you're creating mental notes for yourself, a brief summary of what was said, why it mattered, and then from that, you'll move on to the questions. And for each set of 5 questions, there we go. You're like, blah, 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 nope, that's not it. Blah, blah, nope, that's internally inconsistent. That can't possibly be the right answer. Da, 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 that doesn't look right. It could be that one. Nope, nope, there we go. That is the one that I'm looking for. That was the exact answer that matches my mental notes. It's more strongly supported than D. We pick the correct answer and move on. And that is literally how long it should take to do MCAT questions. Not that one, not that one. Oh, there it is. That one is totally the answer I was looking for. I'm going to continue reading the other answer question or answer choices because it would be silly not to. But nope, that one's weaker. Nope, that one's weaker. Okay, bing. And that's it. If you came out of the text with a good understanding of the text, then you should be pretty quickly picking right answers. This is, in fact, not only the most accurate way to get through a MCAT test, it's also the fastest way to get through an MCAT test. Even if you have to read a little more slowly on the text part, if you come out of it with a clear understanding and are able to zip, zip, zip your way through the questions, then you should have no problem finishing that test with time to spare. All right, I hope that helps. So core bottom lines, it is a reasoning test. The core skills are to throw out broken answer choices and pick the best, the most strongly supported of the remaining choices. 3, get good at recognizing those broken answer choices, those foils, and that comes from practice questions and reading the answer explanations. All right, good luck and happy studying.